Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dead Money with Dan Arfin. Like and subscribe to the channel because what else are you going to do? All right, so later on in this episode, and for most of this episode, I'm going to be addressing a question issued to me by Ohio V on YouTube. And yeah, guys, if you comment and ask questions and stuff like that, I will answer it. Anyway, later I'll be talking about the very abridged version of my poker playing career from start to finish and how it got me here. Now, I've talked about this before, probably not in the detail I'm going to go into today, but there's a more than fair chance you've heard some of this already. So if you don't feel like listening to it, I don't blame you. So I'll tell you when we're at that point in case you feel like stopping. But yeah, it's just going to be my story. And the reason why I'm interested to tell this story is because the question was, can we do a long form review of how you work through the stakes? I almost went this direction at the boom, so it's a glimpse at what might have been. That's a crazy question. So that's why I want to answer it. But before I do, I just want to talk about my little trip to Florida. I thought I was going to play a lot more in the few days I was in Fort Lauderdale, but I did not. But I did take 2 hours at the Seminole Hard Rock. Played some 2-5 with the 1K max, and I'll tell you a little bit about what happens. First thing was kind of gross. I showed up in no man's land on the list. They had one game going. I was like 4th or 5th on the list. They don't have enough players for a new game. It didn't look like they had enough dealers to start a new game anyway, so I'm just stuck here waiting for a long time. And I try not to get deterred from playing at all when this happens, but when you are stuck waiting for a seat, I don't care how busy the room is or isn't. When you're stuck waiting 45 minutes an hour, I mean, this kind of just makes you not want to play after a little while, even though you shouldn't be giving away hours of work just because you had to wait 30, 40 minutes. But it is a bit of a deflator. You know, you come in, you're ready to grind, and you know sometimes you got to wait, but this was an especially long wait. And it feels even worse when the room is empty. I was only there a couple hours, and this is the coldest poker room I've ever been in. I wore a thick long sleeved sweatshirt thing and cargo shorts. I was dressed enough, I felt. And my rule in Vegas is the hotter it is outside, the colder it is inside. So dress warm, bring a hoodie. I did that. I could not take it. This was a fucking refrigerator. And I don't know if that's why I never really got totally comfortable in the game. I mean, it definitely wasn't helping. You know, when you go out of town, it's sort of like being a sports team on the road. It's like there's these little quirky habits that seems to like vary as you go from different town, different part of the country. Just certain habits players have. Like you can't even pinpoint what they are, but it takes a little bit of time to adjust. So I told myself going into this game, just maybe wait a little bit before you start firing overbet bluffs. So what did I do? I fired an overbet bluff rather quickly. You get a raise to 20 in the cutoff. I call with 6s on the button. And since we're only 1K deep, I'm not as excited to 3-bet this hand and potentially triple off and jam the river. I'm much more comfortable doing that when it's 1,500 deep versus 1,000. Plus, I had a fish in the big blind. The guy who opened in the cutoff was this Asian kid, and he had an accent of sorts. And, you know, these are just the types of players I'm just feeling like I need to watch out for in some kind of way. So the flop comes Queen, Jack, 3. Rainbow, we all check. Turn is a 9, we all check. River is a 9, they check to me. And I still don't really know what I was thinking here. I mean, I bet 105 into 60 with these pocket 6s, thinking that 7s or 8s might fold. And in Vegas, I think there's a fair chance Regs would fold that hand, but who knows? Either way, I bet 105 and he's tanking. I was thinking, what the fuck, man? I was like, you told yourself you weren't going to do this, but it's you just get so used to doing it. It's hard to just throw a switch that easily. I mean, but as he was thinking about it, I started thinking, I'll be perfectly satisfied with him folding. But if he calls, I think I'm going to win. I think there's a good chance he's thinking with just ace high even. And these are the kinds of things that seem to go on whenever you go to a new poker room in a totally different part of the country. And he calls, and I won. He had pocket 5. So I'm bluffing with the best hand here. And I think out of the last 3 times I bluffed with the best hand, 2 times it was in Florida, where I got called, that is. That hand was nuts. I don't remember it fully well. I just remember I had 5-3 on like 5-4-3 queen 4. So I got counterfeited, fire this huge nuke on the river, and get called by ace high. By some fucking tournament player. This was 5-10. This was, of course, a much bigger pot. But by some fucking tournament player trying to just own some cash game player. So I scooped this when he has 5s. As he was thinking, I was thinking he could have ace-3, he could have 4s, he could have deuces. He's not expecting me to have this hand. And if I'm trying to get 7s or 8s to fold, it is a weird situation to find yourself in when there's no betting until the river comes running 9s. I could conceivably have a 9. Of course, 8s and 7s are not that bad of a call, are even more inclined to call because they block 9-8 and 9-7. Or they could, at least, depending on what suits they have and what suits are on the table. But obviously, if I didn't get a worse hand to fold, I wasn't going to get a better hand to fold. So maybe it's a good bet on the river if I think I can get called by something light. But that wasn't my intention. My intention was to get him to fold. And then somebody tells him at the table, and this is, kind of what you expect to hear in Florida, like, the guy says, good call, bad result, or something like that. Okay, nothing wrong with him saying that. But then he says, like, if you raise, though, he folds. It's like, he's not going to has no reason to fucking raise there unless he thinks I'm making this bet specifically with 6s, 7s, or 8s. His 5s are either going to be good or they're going to lose to a huge hand. This was one of the rare situations where he could actually call and lose to a hand that will fold to a raise. And this isn't even a flex when I say that I might be one of the only people in this whole country, maybe even on this whole fucking planet, who would fire that size on that river for this reason. Not just some random whale farting out $105 for no reason, just thinking about this and doing it for a reason. Now, does my reason make sense in hindsight? No, it's not really this wasn't that good of a decision. But you know what? Fuck that guy who called, because he probably does all kinds of stupid things all the time. And this time he got fucked by this bullshit. Now, the other hand to talk about, ask and you shall receive. You'll see what I mean in a second. We have this guy, he opens to 25. And this guy, early position, he was this black guy. I think he had sunglasses and a bucket cap. Sometimes he would open 25. Sometimes he would open 15. Sometimes he would open 40. He was betting in the dark, out of position. I felt like this guy was trying to sell this image that he's this big action player, but who's always going to have it in a huge pot. So he buys in with 1,000, and I don't know, he was action at first. I don't know if he was up or down anything significant. Then I left and took a break so that I wouldn't get hypothermia. So I missed one orbit, 10 or 15 minutes. I come back and I see his stack has dropped a bit, and he hasn't topped off. He's only got about 600-ish, so, he's losing at this point. So I don't know how bad, I don't know how he feels about it, but he's losing. So he opens 25 up front, and this game's good, of course. We get a call. I've been quiet for a while, certainly quiet since he sat down. I 3-bet to 130 with pocket queens in the small blind. He instantly shoves 625, and I snap call. And he turns over kings. Now, before we get to anything else, I am not second-guessing a single thing about this decision. I would have 100% made this snap call in Vegas or anywhere under these circumstances. Now, look, I don't know if he only shoves aces, kings, ace-king, or if he just flats ace-king and doesn't shove jacks. Only reality knows that. Not even he knows. I think he probably thinks he knows, but maybe he doesn't know. But look, it doesn't matter. I'm not looking to overthink a spot like this. If he had made it 300, yeah, I would have folded. But here we are. I'm a 4.5 to 1 dog. I've been screaming my head off about how every time I get it in beat, I lose. Although I forgot I published an episode a couple of months ago titled I Finally Sucked Out. So I have sucked out this year. But boy, I still just think I've run so below EV overall and all-ins altogether. Not because of how bad I've run when I'm winning, just because of how bad I've run when I've been behind. I've taken my lumps when I'm ahead. It's not as if I'm scooping every all-in I'm ahead in, which makes up for getting scooped in every all-in you're behind in. But anyway, the flop is Queen 9 deuce, 2 spades. He does not have a spade, neither do I. Turn is a meaningless card. Dead to a king. River is a 10. I did it! Hooray! 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 I finally fucking sucked out! And it wasn't even that big of a pot. What did I say, 1,300? That's about what he had. He had about 625, 650, whatever. He had pretty much the most I would have snap called. If he had even like 200 more, I may not have called. But he was just right in that area where his jam, looks big, but he can't really 4-bet to any other size. Because if he does 4-bet to any other size, he has to call off. So he's essentially jammed when he does that, so he might as well just jam. And nobody gave me too much shit about it, not directly. I mean, people were like, wow. When they say, like, what do you mean, wow? You see this every fucking day. At what point does this not become that big of a shock? But ask and ye shall receive. I've been screaming my head off. I said in the last show, I said, I'm going to keep bitching about this until it changes. And look, I'm not showing up with this interest of getting my money in beat. I just realized that, it's going to happen sometimes, whether it's my fault or not. This one, definitely don't think is my fault at all. You still always feel kind of stupid when you get it in crushed, and you feel a little bit of like a jerk off when you suck out. But no, this just looks like a setup spot where it was his turn to lose. And he got to lose it to me, and he got to get it in with a better hand, and he lost. How come I can never be on the receiving end of these things? Well, I was this time. He's on the other side of the table from me. He comes back, and he says to his neighbor he's talking to him, he's like, I played it perfect. What do you mean you played it perfect? What other thing could you have done that, that you had to think to make sure you don't do so that you play it perfectly? Okay, you had pocket kings. You raised to 25. There was a call. You got a big 3-bet from the small blind, and you shoved when you had not even 150 big blinds. You probably had like 130 at most. You played it perfectly. Oh, you put the money in with kings. Wow. However did you know to do that? What in the world? How the hell did you come to that conclusion? Like, you have... Is he trying to think that, like, what, he should have flatted? I mean, it's like when I make this big 3-bet, you should test your opponent when you have kings. You don't have to fuck around there and flat. I mean, who the fuck would ever do that with his stack? Nobody. He's going on about how he played it perfect. You had kings, you got 3-bet, and you went all in. Wow, genius. Anyway, so after that hand, I mean, I felt like I didn't want to stay that long. I mean, I got my fix anyway. I had other things going on, and it was freezing. But I knew this guy was going to say some shit to me when I left. Not necessarily mean, but something. So I get up, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes later. And he said something like with a smile. He's like, good job getting lucky, Dan, or something like that. I just said, I was like, well, it would be weird if it never happens. God, I mean, people just, they can't accept any sort of defeat without doing something petty. Whatever. It wasn't that petty. But still, it's like, oh, you got to say some shit to the guy who sucked out on you. It's like, dude, shut up. And by the way, there were numerous things that happened at this table that are things in Vegas that I may have like interjected in and made my voice heard. Not necessarily make a whole big scene, okay? I mean, I gotta like control myself a little better. I can't be telling players to shut the fuck up at the table, even if they deserve it, like the guy in the last episode 100% did. It doesn't matter. First of all, there's a minor chance he's a psycho and he shoots my head in the fucking... shoots me in the head in the parking lot. So you eliminate that lightning bolt. And number two, it's just something you can't do. I mean... I could have sent the same message without doing that. I don't feel bad about it. I would never apologize to him for it. But I think it's better if I don't do that again. But yeah, in this Florida game, with all these people getting into little things, I just decided I'm just going to be the road guest. You can tell a lot of these people know each other. I'm going to just sit back and be quiet and watch. It's not like I can't keep my mouth shut. I know perfectly well how to do it. I just decided I didn't feel like inserting any sort of opinion in this situation. And it wasn't going to necessarily scold anyone or whatever the fuck. I mean, there was a spot where a guy thought he was straddling because you could straddle from any position. It was his big blind, but he was straddling. Then he takes it back. Then this guy limps in for 5, gets to the big blind who now raises to 25. And then the player limped in, thought he only had to put in 5, and then the dealer starts to deal a flop. And no, he owes 25. Then he folded. I don't know. He was trying to get his $5 back. It was a confusing situation. He was clearly wrong, but I just chose to sit back and just be the guest and watch. And it actually felt pretty good. But I'm probably not going to stop doing it out here because it's more fun to interject. I mean, look, I don't go out there looking to start fights, people trying to be an asshole. I mean, but you see the way these people act on a daily basis. They just go in and cry and act entitled and just act like total babies all the time over anything and everything. And it's just like, this is my work environment. I'm not fucking dealing with this. I'll say what I want to say to this guy so that the situation resolves faster. But anyway, If you want to pause or stop here, go ahead. If you want to hear the full, like, abridged version of how I was born playing poker to doing this episode, yeah, we're going to go through all of it today. I mean, a lot of different checkpoints, a lot of twists and turns. Starting with well before I played any poker. I mean, the first time I heard of Las Vegas, I think I was 12. And it just sounded really awesome. And then I remember once, just as a kid, I was at a friend's house. He had some pay-per-view boxing match going on. I think it was like Michael Grant versus Lennox Lewis. I don't know. I'd have to see where that fight was, because I remember just the broadcaster saying, like, we're in Las Vegas, and I was just thinking, wow, like I wished I was there. I was like, this is the most badass city. And getting towards the end of high school, still haven't played poker yet. I had the idea that maybe one day I would like to live out somewhere in the West, not necessarily in Vegas. Just I wanted to live out West because I wanted to be near Vegas for some reason. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing when I think back on it. My grandparents liked to play bridge, and they would be the snowbirds. They go visit Florida for a few months during the winter and then go back to New York. But they were playing some free bridge tournament and caught some people cheating in a free bridge tournament. That's how badly some people just want the other person to think you beat them. I mean, and she told me sometime that when people play cards, you see who they are. And years later, I would find out she's right. I mean, and that's especially true at poker. There's no crazier game in the world than this. And I do think you see who people are, and I think it just brings out the ugly. And most people are feeling pretty ugly inside. But anyway, senior year of high school, I started watching a lot of movies, and I eventually saw Rounders, but I was like asleep the whole time, so I hadn't really learned it poker yet. Even now. Remember, we used to play like 5-card draw in 5th grade on recess during the cold months. But we weren't like betting, we were just basically doing flips. So I knew the poker hand rankings for a long time. I just never quite understood what it was with the betting. Till one night, it's my first semester of community college. I'm in my house in my kitchen with these two guys. One of them pulls out a deck of cards, says he can teach us any game. I asked if he knew Texas Hold'em. He says, yeah. He teaches us. And once I saw poker like alive for the first time, this is October of 2003, I'm 18. Once I finally saw, like that's how all the chips work. I realized, wow, this is actually very simple. You just put money in the pot, you bet as you go along, and whoever wins the pot takes the money. Easy. And it was very eye-opening. I was like, wow. I was like, this is incredible. I mean, I don't think I'd ever been that enthralled with anything before or since, except maybe pussy, but fuck that. I mean, a thing that like you have total control over doing or not doing. So I felt like poker was a game that's like fully right up my alley because I love these cat and mouse dynamics of trying to like outwit people, outthink people, be more clever than they are. I like those kinds of games. And that is what poker is built on. So I thought this was just the coolest game in the world to be good at. The most badass game in the world to excel at. And I felt like from that moment, I was already on the path towards playing professional poker. I mean, it was going to take a little while, but I felt like this is what I was going to be doing someday because I was just thinking about poker all the time from that point on and play as much as I could, watch as much as I could, read what I could, just anything I could get my hands on that could help me understand the game a little better. And I already felt like I had an inherent understanding. I think a lot of pros who've played for a long time would tell you that. As soon as they started playing, they felt like they had some sort of feel for it. Even if they were losing players at first, they still felt like they knew what direction they're supposed to be going in. So it was probably about 2 or 3 months before I finally played for money ever. So now we're in January of, say, 2004. I played a couple of $10 three-handed sit-and-goes with friends. I lost both. So I was down $20. And at whatever point I got that $20 back and up, I've never looked back. So the most I've ever been down at any point in my whole playing career was $20. And that's a fact. Other games I would get into over the next couple of years living at home because I was still in community college. There were these guys who I went to high school with who were like 2 or 3 years behind me. I was friends with one of them. And I started playing in their games. They would play 1-2 with buying like $20, $30, $40, rebuy. Like that's what these guys were doing all the time. And I was always thinking like this is incredibly fucking stupid, but probably a pretty significant edge too, because if you know how to play pre-flop, I mean, you're just going to annihilate these guys. But I was running kind of bad at first. Felt like I was losing most of the time. I mean, I didn't lose all the time, but I remember the first night I lost $70 in like maybe 3.5 hours. And everyone was just making fun of me as just the biggest nit in the world because I wasn't playing a single hand. I was just, and you know something? I was just card dead. I lost $70 in an unraked 1-2 game and 3.5 hours. Is there anything to talk about here? How is this a memory for anybody, right? And when I got all in at the end, I had kings all in against ace king suited and jack 10. And I think the flop was little with a pair. So I got the 2-pair counterfeited of jack 10 running jacks. And I don't know how big that pot was, but I lose this hand down $70, and I just thought I was never going to play again. I said I'm never going to play again because I was completely just disturbed. We all know that experience where the first time you lose, what just feels like a disturbing amount of money. You can't even believe you could ever lose that much money. It's unfathomable. It's devastating. It feels like you've been shot in the fucking heart. And this is how I felt about losing $70 at what age? I was probably 19. So I don't know how long I stayed out of the game forever with money. It probably wasn't that long. But I still never had a $100 win in any game. I mean, I would play with my friends. I would play with these dummies. I'd play whenever I could. Finally, one day, I go up to Turning Stone with a couple of guys. And not only do I finally break triple digits, I won over 500. I get back from the day. I'm at home watching the Met game. My dad comes back from somewhere. And I just like gave him the minimum information when he asked me. He said, "Hey, Dad." I'm like, "Hey." He's like, "How'd you do?" I'm like, "Fine." He's like, "Did you win?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "How much?" I said, $514. He's like, $5.14? I said, "No." He said, $514? I said, "Yeah." And, you know, it's not that he thought that this is some huge turn of events, but he was, you know, taken back a little bit. Had opened his eyes a little bit, considering, you know, maybe, I don't know, a year and a half earlier, one morning I told he and my mom that I lost $30 the night before, and they both hit the fucking ceiling. My mom told me I was going to lose all my money playing poker. And look, they were just scared. I mean, they just thought this was blind gambling, you know, and you should ask questions if somebody takes a poker. This is a very dangerous game. What you don't want to do is just assume that you know everything about something you actually know nothing about and telling me these terrible things to scare me from doing it. I mean, look, to me, it was just noise. I didn't care if I had my parents' support on this or not. I knew I was going to do it, and I knew I was going to be fine. But now we fast forward, and I remember saying to him, I know what I'm doing, and I got some big bluff through at the end of that day. I turned jacks into a bluff. I got a guy to fold pocket queens on a king high board. That hand was nuts because I was up all day, and if I get called there, now I'm going to be losing. So say what you want about how ridiculous the whole action was. The bottom line was, in that hand, I felt like I knew what was going on. I felt like I knew what I had to do to win the hand. I think I 3-bet pre with jacks. He made it 25, I made it 50. Flop was low. He check called. Turn was a king. He check called 100. River was nothing. He check called check folded to a jam, and he tanked like hell on the turn and river. So that was definitely my first like really huge casino moment. That's for sure. That was my first big moment at a casino, winning that hand in that manner. And then I left right after that. I mean, yeah, hit and run a bluff. Okay. I mean, I was getting towards the end of the day anyway, and then I felt like because I showed this hand for sure. I felt like I felt like it was the perfect note to leave on. Now, I would make other chips at Turning Stone. Some of them didn't go good. You know, I can't remember this that well. It was more than 20 fucking years ago. And I don't have the order of everything. But I remember one night I was playing with those high school kids, and I remember the first huge heater I had in a short period of time, where I won like 1,100 at the end of the night in like an hour. And when I was walking back to the car, I was just like, whoa. That was freaking, like, I can't even believe what just happened. Like, you know that, like, you can play. But the first time something like this happens, the first time you have these huge heaters, the first time you experience, like, the euphoria and, like, seeing that, like, what you know and what you've been trying to, like, put into the game and the strategy you're playing with, now it's actually literally paying off. It's eye-opening. It's like, wow, it's like, I'm right. I knew it. I knew that I knew, but like, wow, here it is. Here's the results. That was definitely after the $500 win at Turning Stone. And then my first 4-digit win was also at Turning Stone. I think this was around January of 2006. Remember, at the end of 2005, I started playing online more. In 2006 and 2007, I started playing a lot of poker online. So I was like a part-time pro at this point. Because I dropped out of college in October of 2005. I got my Performing Arts Associate's degree. started doing stand-up, got more into poker because show business blows, and then, yeah, around the time I started working, I started playing online a bit. So '06 and '07, I had jobs, but I was working two jobs. I was playing poker online and I was working. And not spending that much money because I was just putting everything away for, my business, essentially. I mean, I only wanted money so that I could comfortably move up in stakes and have a cushion. I mean, I've always been a good bankroll manager. And, I read things I'm reading in the beginning is how players are just go broke on downswings and play terrible when they're losing. And I told myself in the beginning, okay, if there's one thing I'm going to do better than everybody else, it's this. I'm going to manage the money well. I'm not going to play like a fucking moron when I'm losing. And it's not that I've never done it. Of course, I've done it plenty of times. But yes, I have had a huge edge this entire time in that department of play. It is not feeling sorry for yourself and not turning into a little bitch when you're losing. I mean, if for no other reason, it's just like they tell you to leave early when you're losing, but it's like when I get stuck, I don't want to leave. I want to play. I do enjoy playing. So it's like just because I'm buried in the first 2 or 3 hours doesn't mean I've lost interest in playing, but like I care about making good decisions. So it feels good to make good decisions no matter how bad things are going. It always feels good to make good decisions. I've been telling people for years that I would rather play well and lose than play bad and win. Psychologically, that feels better. Now, sometimes you just want to win any way you can get it, but when I suck out and play terribly, I mean, I feel like a real fucking asshole about it. I know I'm going to pay for this one day. That's the worst part. When you play well and lose, you're like, all right, whatever, I'll get mine. It's the opposite feeling. It's disappointing that you lost and other things, but whatever. Every decision you make at the table, every hand you play, has an intrinsic value, plus or minus. It'd be so great if you could know what it was each time, but if you lose $2,500, maybe you made $250 in your decisions. Maybe the total value of all your decisions added up to plus $250 for you. You just don't know it. But that's the truth of what's going on. I mean, each decision is worth something. You can't look at it as each individual short-term outcome to a specific hand is like, this is like what you did, I mean, we can understand why a person does feel that way. If a guy bluffs you off a $2,000 pot, he bets 1,000 to 1,000. Yeah, it's true. If you had called, you'd have $2,000 extra dollars in front of you. That's right. But what about all the times you fold to these river bets, river raises, check raises, this, that? What about all the times you fold and you save that money? So, this is why you can't just hyper focus on each individual result, which is something I still do. I mean, it's hard not to. But anyway, my first 4-digit win was also at Turning Stone. I played 2-5 and 5-5. I won 1670. I got a speeding ticket on the way up there. That was about $230, whatever, cost doing business. I mean, that's how I looked at it the whole time. I was like, oh, look, I'm glad I got that ticket because if I didn't, butterfly effect. But no, it's like the ticket still cost $230. Who knows? If I didn't get a ticket, maybe I would have won $3,000. We don't know. So you can't, look at it as like, oh, you wouldn't have made money if you didn't get that ticket. Nobody knows the unknown. Back in the day when Hold'em was new, it was so colorful and exciting because there wasn't a lot of information about it, or at least not a lot of valuable information. Everybody was just shooting from the hip. I mean, it was just my intuition versus your intuition. And let's see who's better. There was some common sense things you could figure out about what hands to fold pre-flop and things like that. But like for the most part, we're all just out here exploring this new game. I mean, it's not new in terms of how long it's been around, but it's new to a ton of people, so it might as well be a new game. So I'm making good money as someone who's 20 and 21 years old. I'm not traveling. I'm all business. And I wanted to play poker full time. It was like my fantasy, but it felt like a dream that I could never actually attain because I just had so much family guilt to get over and let go to allow myself to just go, live my own life. I come from a traditional Jewish family, and it's not that I was ever interested in doing any of these things that my family wanted me to do. It just felt like you don't have control of your own decisions, even though you do. Now, long story short, obviously I did it eventually. So in February of 2008, a few weeks before I turned 23, I stopped working and promoted myself to the major leagues of poker, playing full time. And I think on the second day of the endeavor, I had a huge meltdown loss. I mean, look, I would tilt. I tilted online. Who doesn't tilt online? I mean, what I said before about, playing well when I'm losing, I've applied that very well to live poker. I mean, but internet poker, I mean, the tilt factor is huge. So maybe relatively speaking, I wasn't that bad. But I lost like 4K. And, I would play anywhere from like 1-2 to 10-20, depending on, how tilted I am. And I just had this breakdown. I felt like I was fucked. I felt like it was over. Even though I had whatever amount of money left, it was just enough to play. And I was just like crying, asking myself, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I mean, it just felt like it felt like the roof had already caved in on me, even though it was just a bad loss. And look, what do you do every time? You know, we go home and really defeated and just feel like you lost a piece of your soul. But like, on all these times, one day you wake up and you don't care anymore. And then that's the day you go back to play. You're over it. But within a couple of months, I felt like internet poker was starting to get a little tougher. And I wasn't that eager to catch up to get with the times. I mean, I always fancied myself a live player anyway, but there wasn't much live poker around where I lived, even in Manhattan. I mean, I played in some home games around the city with rakes that were way too high, so I shouldn't have even been playing. And private games are dangerous anyway, so you're better off playing online, even whatever collusion could be going on. But I fancied myself a live player, and then I got the idea that in case I don't want to be doing this full time, why don't I go to a dealer school outside Atlantic City, which I've still never been to, and just have some formal training in case I'd rather do both, or maybe just deal even. So I did this 4-week training course there that was 4 days a week, so I was bussing back and forth and playing at the Borgata at night. I mean, just jumped into 5-10 no limit, which was by far the biggest live game I had played. Well, yeah, I guess I had played 2-5 at Turning Stone, so it was just the next level up. But online, I had played those stakes plenty of times, but just jumping into live was a little different, and played a few sessions, felt fine, was playing kind of tight, was getting clock called on me a lot. Then within a few months, I gave 10-20 a try. I mean, yeah, it was a lot, stressful and everything, but like, I felt okay. Felt like I was competing, and I felt like I was winning. And then I woke up one day with this outrageous idea of, why don't I move to Vegas? I mean, I didn't want to live in like Brigantine or Atlantic City. I mean, I started to think, now I want the most competitive city in the country. I want the whole thing. Because I want to know how big this can really get and how far can I actually push this. Now, I had never been to Vegas. And now I'm just going to move there. Now, I did go there for a few days with my dad just to visit and check it out, which it wasn't really a necessary trip, but that's what I did. So I never had the thrill of like, oh my God, I'm going to Vegas. I just moved there. And look, by the time I moved there, this is November 2008. This is a little over 5 years where I first learned poker. And I've been, a part-time professional player for a little over 2 years. And I've been a full-time player for almost 1 year. I had a resume of winning. It's not as if I'm moving to Vegas with $5,000 and I'm going to give it a try. When I got to Vegas, I had like a $65,000 bankroll and I was going to play 10-20, buying with 2K bullets. My bankroll had been higher before I moved out. I think I was as high as 88,000, but then I was living in the city, then I was losing living expenses, and the market started tanking, the economy started crashing at the end of 2008. So I got here with 65K, more than enough to do work. I didn't tell that many people about it because, most people are haters, and I wasn't even that big of a deal anyway. I mean, I know moving across country, leaving everyone and everything seems like a big deal, but like, look, this was just taking my business and moving it elsewhere. To me, this was no question of whether or not will I be good. It's just to what extreme will I be great? That's what the answer I was looking for, not will I be able to do this. We know I'll be able to do it. Everybody who knew me well had absolutely no doubt that I was going to be just fine. And I had no plan when I got here about hours and winnings and this and that. It was just like leap and it appears, just take the step, take the dive, go into the thing, go do the thing you want. Don't worry about having this huge, precise plan. I mean, obviously you have a little bit of a plan, but like, you don't blow things off forever while trying to come up with the perfect plan. You figure out what the plan is once you start doing it. Because nothing ever goes according to plan anyway, so what are you wasting your time for with a plan? I came here, I believed in myself, I knew I'd be fine. I knew I'd win. Why? I've done nothing but win to this point. Why would it stop now? I mean, yeah, I'm making the transition to being a full-time live player, which I haven't really done, but live poker is what I always expected to play. I mean, I played a lot of heads up playing online because I figured why bother playing against 4 or 5 other players? You have to fold all these hands. Just play one idiot and, you make more money. And heads up is very difficult to win at. I mean, and over the years, I've had, probably around 20 heads-up matches dwindle down. I never started a heads-up match, I don't think. Or not, at least none that lasted. It's just waiting for the seats to fill up. But heads up, I mean, I have some game playing heads up because I'm very willing to do it. I mean, there's so many regs that say if a game shrinks, they don't want to play heads up. I'm down to play heads up when I know it's some fish. I've taken one or two matches I probably shouldn't have taken, but this is something I look forward to getting the chance to do. When you can sit with a weak player who is no one but you and him. And if you catch a little wave against him, I mean, that's a big part of what heads up is about, is when one guy goes on a rush, is that you don't unravel. And that's what a lot of people do. But anyway, I get to Vegas, and I was just remember almost praying, please let me get off to a good start. And I won 4,300 on my first 10-20 session. And look, I mean, the variance just wasted no time. I remember in those first few weeks, I won 17,000 in 2 days. Had my first 5-digit win. Within 2 or 3 weeks, I lost back all that 17,000. I remember there was a session I was up 10,000. I lost it all back and won very small. I mean, was I playing reckless? No, I mean, maybe here and there. Maybe I had little moments, but this was just poker. This is 10-20. 10-20 it's not doubling the fucking madness at 5-10. It's quintupling it. It's a real bloodbath. The player pool from 2-5 to 5-10 shrinks tremendously, and it shrinks tremendously even more going to 10-20. 5-10 is entry-level high limit. It's a legit high-limit game. But a lot of people never get past that. Don't even try to play higher. And at the time, I just had my, nose to the ground. I mean, wasn't thinking yet about how, I was 23 and already ready for 10-20. I mean, in hindsight, I'm proud and maybe even impressed. Jeez. Well, that's how bad I wanted it, though. So I get off to a pretty good start here. I come here with 65,000. Within a few months, I have 100. But then things turned south for a while. And my 100K roll had dwindled to 55. That's a lot of money. It's a big percentage to lose. But look, I'm not in any kind of trouble here, duh. But I was taking this cross-country trip with my friend from New York. He's moving to LA. And long story short, we get arrested in Texas. It was a bullshit charge. But I think the day we got arrested, we're checking out of this cheap hotel. And I was toying with the idea of maybe playing poker and also becoming a private investigator, but I let that idea go because private investigators is not as fun as it used to be, where you get to hide in the bushes or really spy on people. It seems like a lot of it's done online now, so it's not as cool as it used to be. And look, it's not necessarily something I was going to do anyway. But I just remember sitting on the edge of my bed, just thinking how I don't want this to end. Because this was really fucking with me, by the way. I mean, I wanted this more than anything in the freaking world. And I would be so hard on myself. I would beat myself to shit over every mistake. I would turn into this nocturnal creature, be nocturnal for 4 or 5 days straight, sleeping 12 hours a day, just all kinds of fucked up. Because I felt like every mistake I made, this was going to make my demise as a player one day. And I think I was winning on the year, but because of expenses and shit, my roll after 7-8 months dropped 10,000 from 65 to 55. Okay, it's really not a disaster, but to this point we can't declare that this has gone particularly well. And I needed to see a shrink about all this, about why I had such terrible self-esteem issues as a player, because this was my world. I mean, if I couldn't do this, I would just feel like I had nothing. All I wanted to do, all I wanted to do was just make it as a player. It meant everything to me. So the therapist I find, is this guy. He's a problem gambling therapist, which, he's not really, this is not exactly what my problem is. I was like, I don't have a gambling problem. I said, but my problem, it pertains to gambling. I remember saying that. And of course, naturally, we barely talked about this because, your issues, the things you're mad about, you're never mad about the things you're mad about. It's always something else. So we had plenty of other shit to talk about. And then within 5 or 7 meetings, I was in a much better headspace. Not as hard on myself, and then I caught fire at the end. I think in the last 2 or 3 months of the year, I went on some crazy heater where I won 59,000. It ended up being a very big year in 2009, my first full year, because I got here in November of 2008. And all that did was just reaffirm what had been going on the whole time. I was being so hard on myself, thinking that there's all this stuff I'm doing wrong, and I'm playing terribly. And no, the truth was I'm actually playing pretty good. And you just got to give variance its time to do its thing, and just remember it's not predictable, and just go about your business. Now 10-20 was my usual game, but sometimes I played quarter 50. I remember I would have played one bullet. I remember I lost 5K my first 3 sessions, and then I won my next 5 sessions. And I remember I played a 9K pot in that second session where I got it in way ahead, but lost. Oh yeah, I lost 4K, lost 6K, lost 5K. So the second session when I lost 6K, I remember I was talking to my mom on the phone, and I was like telling her how excited I was that I played this huge pot at quarter 50 and had the best hand. I was like, I lost, so I lost 6,000. But I was like, the way I was talking to her, you'd think I'd won 6,000, and she's like, that's a lot of money. I was like, yeah, but like I made a good decision. Like I was just excited about the prospects of the future. I mean, that occurred early on after moving. Oh, one other quick story. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity came up like 2 months after moving here. Like, Guy Laliberté was playing 50-100 in Bobby's room with his friends, and there was a seat open. I was there when the game started. There was a seat open. And I remember it was around the time I had like 100K. But I was like already kind of looking for houses because the real estate market was tumbling, and I knew it'd be a good investment. I know I'm not going to leave Vegas for a while, so why not? And this was ultimately why I didn't feel like playing 50-100 for, 2 or 3 hours. I mean, look, in terms of the money, we know that I probably wasn't going to win or lose that much, but it would have been the experience to just be in Bobby's room with Guy Laliberté, the freaking owner of Cirque, with all his goofy French fish friends. I mean, it's almost like that opportunity came up too fast for me to even realize how incredible it would have been. I mean, I remember there was a reg there who got on the waiting list after that seat was filled, and he was telling me, you should play. I'm telling you, these chances don't come around that much. And I did go back on the list, but it was too late. I was never going to get in. And look, this isn't something I regret that much, but damn, I mean, I kind of just wish I had done it, That would have been pretty excellent. But all right, so I have a big year in 2009. In 2010, I should have had a big year, but I played a lot worse that year. It's not that I played badly, but I just became such a station. I just remember just stationing off in so many freaking spots. And this has not been the way I play all my playing career. I mean, I'm more likely to get bluffed than I am to make a bad call, but this year, 2010, I just made a lot of bad calls. But at the end of the year, December 2010, 2 years after this Guy Laliberté chance came and went, I did buy a house which I still live in. And here's some run good. Going into 2011, I was on fire. So within just a few months, I won back the house. And 2011 went on to be my best year overall, and is still my best year. And as I was running my bankroll up, I started buying in deeper. First, I'd buy in 2,000 at 1020. It would be a 4K stop loss. I'd bring 2,000 on the table and 2,000 in my pocket. And the funny thing is, I would do the same thing at 510 and not consider the fact that I'm buying with 200 big blinds instead of 100. I just thought of it the same way. How crazy is that? To not be aware of something like that. I mean, thinking about some of the things I used to not be aware of or decisions I used to make, it's amazing to me that I wasn't the biggest fish in the whole fucking city. So I played some World Series tournaments, busted out of everything, 1Ks, 1500s. Then I played the 10K main event in 2012, got to day 4, made the money, came in 371. Played the main event the next year in 2013, took all my action the whole time. Didn't play that great, went out on the day 2 and haven't bought into a tournament since, and still loving it. Fuck tournaments. They are terrible for your emotions. So yeah, from the last 6 or 7 weeks of 2008 through 9, 10, 11, 12, I mean, I was playing 5, 10, 10, 20, and sometimes higher. I mean, I was good for about, 8 to 900 hours a year. It just varied. That's pretty much all I could handle. I mean, 2010, I played over 1,000 hours. That was the only year I broke 1,000 hours in all the years that I was playing bigger. Again, into 2013, I turned 28 in March, and right after I turned 28 is when I started getting more health conscious and into nutrition and fitness and things like that. Up until that point, I would play poker when I had nothing better to do. If there wasn't some girl I was trying to fuck, or some fun thing I could do, go drive to or fly to around the country, or some pizza I wanted to eat, or some weed I wanted to smoke, or some movie I wanted to watch, or some game I wanted to watch, or some sleep I wanted to get, if none of those things were in the way, then I would go play. Otherwise, I'm goofing off. They tell you to have fun in your 20s, so I had fun in my 20s. And I knew, eventually I was probably going to stop doing this. And once I started becoming more interested in fitness and things like that, I mean, dividing my pie graph of priorities, then I started playing a little bit less. I still played a lot in 2013, but it was the fewest hours I played in all the years that I was playing higher all the time. Then we get into 2014 and 2015. Over those next 2 years, I somehow was a losing player. I was a slight loser. I was doing really, really great for 5 years, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Then 14 and 15, the wheels just come off. I wasn't this big loser, but all this money that you had been winning, now you don't win any of it, now you lose. I think over those next 2 years, I think I lost like 4K. And I really only played about a year's worth of poker in those 2 years, maybe a little more than a year. I got into CrossFit in 2013. I got hooked on that for a couple of years. I was a full-on CrossFit cult member every which way. Everything you've ever known about CrossFit cult members fit my description exactly. And I think I'm just starting to get a little burnout. I mean, the pool was getting smaller, and I got more and more miles on me each year. But I've done a lot of things that I'm proud of and happy with. But it just feels like the mojo is going away. I mean, look, I never played football, but it seems like football poker does in the sense that each hit is a little bit harder to get up from. You know, when I was like 24, my biggest downswing was around 34 or 35,000. When I was 27, I had a 50K downswing. Now I'm like 29, 30, and now I'm on a 64K downswing. I mean, this shit is a lot to come back from. And not to mention all your, 10s and 20s in between all these especially long losing periods, which took me even longer to get through because when I'm losing, I don't play as much. I get dejected. So, you got to put volume in. And I think it's smart that I would pace myself and take my time through these bad periods, but I would play more often when there was water in the well, when I'm winning and feeling good. But when I'm losing, after so much of it, you just go back less and less often, and you're waiting for things to turn, so you don't mind. You're managing your money well, so you're never in any trouble. I've never had any financial stress. I've always had an overall. I've always been fine. I mean, I've been stressed plenty of times, but never in any kind of trouble. So I give myself credit for that because I realize that hardly any players can actually say that. Slow and steady wins the race, and that's just what I've been doing all this time. I mean, I just try to only play when I'm really, really into playing. I don't like forcing myself to play. I like playing when it feels fun to play. If it feels like I'm forcing myself to play, then I'm not going to play as well. I mean, this is not the point to play. You can't play for the money with poker. You got to play for the game. If you're forcing yourself to play, you don't really want to be there, you're playing for the money. If you're in the mood for action, you're in the mood to put people in tough spots, you're in the mood to just play and do what you got to do, big calls, big folds, whatever you got to do, that's playing for the game. And that's what you got to do. And if you're thinking about playing poker full-time, I would say don't do it. Because I didn't think about playing poker full-time. I had a lot of shit to get over, but that had nothing to do with wanting to play. I only had the struggle because there was no thought whatsoever. I knew I wanted to do this. I kind of needed to do this. It was either that or just, suck some job that I have no real skills at and just be some fucking cog and I'll just be invisible on the wheel. I mean, this was sort of the only thing I could do. Me and school don't mix. Never did. But, I did have enough love for the game that I wasn't thinking about doing. I absolutely knew I wanted to do it. So if you absolutely know you want to do it, for presumably the same reasons I did, then okay, do it. But if you're somewhat on the fence about it, don't fuck with this. I've seen plenty of players come and go. Some were good, some are not so good. The variance just drives people crazy. It really just comes down to how bad you want it. How bad do you want the freedom? Getting up whenever you want, going to sleep when you want, taking off when you want. You got to put yourself to work and put the hours in, but you have total control over all of that. And if you manage your money well, you can live a relatively simple, carefree life without much financial stress. And that's pretty much what I've been doing all these years. I mean, money management and all that with poker, I've always been great at. So you might say that's been the best point of my entire playing career. It's just the fact that this has never really put me in a real tough spot. I mean, I've had plenty of shitty, stressful times, but it's like there's no genuine trouble. I've never been in trouble. Not even close. And it's for the reason I knew all along as soon as I started playing. I was like, okay, I'm going to be like a million times better than almost everybody who plays. And you got to give yourself credit because there are times where I would go on losing streaks and I'd be like, God, I didn't enjoy that last heater at all. I was always beating myself up for this and that. I mean, look, you should still analyze your play, but at the same time, you got to smile a little bit when things are going well because it's just always going to be this back and forth periods of feeling like the worst piece of unlucky dog shit in the whole world and feeling like you're invincible. It's always going to be like that. So as I'm wearing down, I started to think that maybe I'll give comedy another run. Maybe I just need to leave Vegas. I'll keep the house. So I moved to LA in September of 2015. I was still playing higher when I played. I was playing around LA a bit. But I never really did anything by way of stand-up in LA. I think I just needed a break from Vegas. I was on that 64K downer. I won some of it back. I think I won back about 17,000. But then going into 2016, I left LA probably in January or February. I was only there a few months. And I thought, all right, you know what? I'm just going to drop down to 2.5. It's not because I have to. It's because I just don't want to play higher anymore. And it'll be easier to get hours in, which is something I always wanted to put more time in. I mean, I would always feel guilty for not playing more because, everybody's threshold is what it is. All my friends always played more than me. And I would always feel like lazy compared to them. I wasn't being lazy. I was just doing what worked for me. This is not an ordinary job, okay? There's nothing. Everyone who thinks, wow, that sounds crazy, you can't imagine what it'll be like. Yeah, you gotta just let it unfold the way it does. And you shouldn't be trying to mimic any other player's playing schedule or try and mimic any other lifestyle. You gotta just play when you feel like playing, however often that ends up being. I don't have a problem putting in long hours once I'm there. The issue has been getting me to the casino. I used to say the only thing I like more than playing poker is not playing poker because I just like to, enjoy life. I mean, the time and freedom that poker will give you if you do the job right. I mean, that's why I wanted to play. I thought if I do this well, if I do this right, I won't have to do it that much. And when you get out of the high stakes, when you're not willing to get in deep 5, 10,000 like every fucking game, then you realize what your bankroll, you realize how much it's actually worth, how much time this actually affords you, how much time you can spend and just do whatever you want. I mean, it got to a point where I was buying in 6K at 1020, and I think that was getting a little, then that started to feel a little deep, so then I was taking it back to 4K. But sometimes I would get in really deep or top off a lot of money when it was still no cap, you have a really big whale in the game. Sometimes I played higher, about 10, 20, 40. Biggest game I ever played in was 50-100 with a 20K min. That was at the old Win Poker Room. I probably have about, let me look, it's 224 hours of 10, 20, 40 or higher. So you might look at that as like my playoff cash games. And maybe that 20K game was like the World Series of that was my World Series of poker. My main event's cash game, final table. But I thought, all right, if I'm playing 2-5, my swings will not be as vicious, obviously, and it'll be easier to get time in. You'll have a bigger edge over the players. All right, let's do it. So I was, still in the gym a lot, but now just playing smaller, and I was enjoying it. And I really hit the ground running. I mean, one of my biggest months at 2.5 was the first month I committed to it full time. I mean, I would play it in the previous years, but as like a supplement. And by the way, ran completely horrible at 2.5 from, 09 through 2015. I mean, I was like a small winner in this game. I was winning like 4 big blinds over hundreds of hours, which is a small sample. But it feels like a long time when it spans all these fucking years. I mean, the whole point of playing 2.5 from time to time was to like supplement the income and like lower your stress level. All it did was raise the stress level. I mean, how many sessions I'm buried within 15 to 45 minutes every fucking game, and I'm just trying to get unstuck and unstuck and unstuck. It was crazy. Like I said, you try and come up with a plan. Well, like Mike Tyson says, like everyone has a plan until they get hit. Yeah, everyone has a plan as 2.5 as their supplement game until their supplement game bites them in the ass every fucking time they play. But that did not last when I went all in on it. And I still play it higher sometimes, but not very often. And when I did, I didn't have the same mojo. But anyway, so 2.5 became the new bread and butter, and I was doing fine, but then started to hit a long, extended, shitty stretch, and just getting really sick of it now. And around March of 2017, I felt like I was done. Like, I felt like I just never want to do this anymore. I was so burnt out, so sick of it. I hated it. I remember saying I hated it. I mean, I'm in my 9th year as a full-time player by now, I think, and it's just enough is enough. I think we all hate poker at some point in our playing careers, some sooner before later, some not. I never hated it more than I hated it now. For the next 3.5 years, I wasn't playing that much. I only played about 600-something hours. And when I did play, I mean, I probably wasn't playing as good as I would have been if I was fully in it. I mean, at times I tried to bring myself back fully to it, but I just didn't want it for a while. Like I did, but I didn't. So I did a lot of writing. I self-published a couple of books, one of which I still have on the market. That book, by the way, has a very short title. It's called What Has Happened to Baseball? A concentrated look at analytics, poker, and intuition. So like I said, very short title. That's a book I still like. I mean, that book was about, I published that in, I think, May of 2020. That book was about how both baseball and poker are greatly overdoing their discoveries with game theory optimal. I mean, baseball uses sabermetrics analytics. I mean, all the sports use them now. That's their equivalent to game theory optimal. And yeah, of course, it's great and valuable. However, you cannot allow it to run the whole sport, same as you can't let a solver run all your decisions. You're not playing against solvers, so if you do what the solver always does, you're going to make a lot of unnecessary mistakes. Now, my baseball book would just talk about the overuse of analytics. I mean, if you overuse something, now it has a diminishing return. Anyway, you can go check out that book if you want. I still like it. I still think it's okay. But that's part of what I was doing during that 3.5 year stretch of not much play. But I wasn't making any money, so I wanted to just make money at something. I mean, I didn't need to make the money, but I wanted to make the fucking money. So I thought 10 years after learning how to deal poker, now, all right, now I'll go deal. So, I had nothing coming in for over a year. I think maybe I did something. I think I did write for some website. I don't know. But I wasn't doing anything making money at poker for over a year. But then I dealt the World Series of 2018. And then I dealt the WPT winner end of the year series of the Bellagio. I was there for about 10 weeks. That was a very strange thing to be doing. Dealing all these hands to guys I used to play big pots with. There's still regs there. And now I'm chasing the little dollar one at a time. I got a lot of double takes as a player, and I figured a lot of people would think I was broke. So I felt like the need to tell everybody who would ask me about, hey, what are you doing? Like, I felt the need to say that, like, yeah, I just got burnt out. Like, I know it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. And ultimately, it didn't make a difference to me because I, chose to deal anyway in spite of this fear. But it was in that time I realized I was more respected than I thought I was. I mean, I thought people just thought I was probably pretty good, but, you don't see around as much as you see the other players. So I just figured I was kind of invisible to most people, but, people would say things to me like, oh, it's nice to see you on that side of the table. I was like, really? I'm like, okay. Well, so that was nice to hear, but, then you had the pandemic in 2020, and then, I dealt some home games during that. And then I was visiting a friend in Miami in September of 2020, and I got nothing on my mind. I had just gotten into Muay Thai the last year plus. I was all in on that, going to that all the time. Fell in love with sparring and was thinking about how sparring is a lot like poker, trying to fool people into doing things so you can exploit them and make them think you're going one way when you're going another way. Anyway, I'm in Miami. I can finally sleep. So then I'm just walking around Brickell with this guy, and then all of a sudden I have this epiphany. And the epiphany was that as miserable as life is with poker, it's actually worse without it. And of course I mean that a bit facetiously, but the important thing was I was like, okay, well that settles it all right there. I'm going back to playing as soon as I get home. Like, I know the game's always going to be what it's always been, but that's fine. I'm going to be fine because I always have been fine. But I still don't want to play higher. I'm still going to stick to 2-5. And when I got back to Vegas, I mean, that's what I did. I was playing a lot of Bellagio 2-5 for about a month, sort of like a rehab assignment, but it was still 500 max. Then I went back to the Wynn and made the Wynn my main room again. When I first played 2-5 a lot in 2016, yeah, the Wynn was my main room. Sometimes I go to Aria or some other place, but pretty much the Wynn. The Bellagio had been my main room from the first 7+ years I was here for 5, 10, and 10, 20, and then you'd also played a bit of Venetian, then RA opened, and that killed a lot of their business. And, the Wynn, even in its old poker room, which was a bit smaller, I mean, they always had big games running. But the Bellagio was my main room. But it's been the Wynn for over 10 years now, including the break time. And I was just bloodthirsty again. I mean, I was really been just as hungry as I was when I played higher. I mean, because now I'm trying to be the best player in the pool, which I knew wasn't going to happen when I played higher. Because first of all, the gap, I mean, there were a bunch of good regs. I mean, the regs were good. There were regs better than me, and there were just hardly any regs that really stood out. I think you had your top regs, but there really wasn't necessarily one or two guys who were like way, way further ahead of the rest. And that's what I wanted to be at 2-5. And when I came back in late 2020, I had some adjustments. I was going to be opening a lot less from early position and flatting a whole lot less, just 3-betting all the time and going heads up a lot. I mean, calling feels like it's lowering variance, to not 3-bet the more medium hands. It's actually raising variance because you're going multi-way and you're just fucking off little bits at a time versus 3-betting taking the lead, being in position, getting it to heads up so you have the most equity because you're only playing against one hand. I mean, the hand just performs better. I mean, the variance is going to run out differently. You're going to go on some sudden swings where you barrel off and lose a lot of money, but overall, this approach is worth way more money, and especially being aggressive out of the small blind. So, and as soon as I started implementing these new strategies, the win rate went way up, way up. I couldn't believe how far up it went. Then in 2022, I started to get the idea that maybe I'll do a podcast about poker, and I called it Dead Money. I did, I think, maybe 6 or 7 episodes, and I kind of fizzled out fast. The most interesting story I talked about, or got to talk about, was Robbie J. Lou, the hand, the Jack 4 with Garrett. Other than that, I think I was just being too serious. So I just lost interest in an idea and just forgot about it for a while. But then a couple of years later, I was starting to feel the way I did in March of 2017. I'm just getting worn the fuck out by this. I mean, it seems that I can only take a few years of full-time play of this before I'd start to lose interest. So I go to the Bellagio one night, a room I never play at. Hardly ever play the 2-5. You know, once was my main room. Now I hardly ever go there. But then, just out of nowhere, I took an edible. All out of nowhere, I had another epiphany that I got to bring the podcast back. Only instead of doing stand-up, you know, I can do insult comedy storytelling about the morons we have to deal with every single day. And just, you know, try and speak the inner monologue of what I know is going on in the minds of a ton of people who play and hate it. So I felt like I need to do this. I've been playing poker full time for too long, and it's not satisfying anymore to just play. I need something else attached to it. And this will be my therapy, and I don't care if nobody listens. I got to do this either way. I got to get on the mic and talk about the hands I played. And look, I have fun talking about hands and trying to, you know, help certain players think about the game differently so they can get better. I like doing that. But just the way people act at the table is just so ridiculous, and I just can't take it anymore. That's one of the things I missed most about dropping down from the higher limits is the maturity levels drop a lot as well. I mean, there's bullshit at every limit. I don't care how big you're playing. People are going to act like assholes. But the lower you go in stakes, the more and more of that you see. There's more people. These are just children who are just now in adult bodies. I mean, it's insufferable. And the 2-5 pool specifically is probably the worst social breed to deal with because they take themselves the most seriously. You know, the 1-3 players are having fun. The 5-10 players are much more grown up. And of course, anyone who plays higher, people act with more respect. The PLO field is an action game. I mean, that's going to get people who have interesting personalities. Most of the 2-5 is either wannabes, people acting like have more money than they do, or people who got out of 1-3 and are just these really nitty players who take themselves super seriously. But this is the field I want to play against because this is where I think I can make the most money, and I'm interested in trying to be the GOAT in this player pool. And I've been at it for almost 6 years. These last 6 years you could call like really just the second act of my playing career, I guess, but I am certain that I'm at or near the top of this pool. And I still feel I should be playing a hell of a lot better, but that's besides the point. But yeah, that still wasn't enough. I mean, I needed the creative outlet. That's why I started the show. And I talk more about this and tell some of the stories. You should, if you haven't heard episode 1, it's actually called part 1 of episode 1. I had to re-release it because I had some sound issues at first. Yeah, it's an amateur podcast, all right? I'm trying my best here, okay? I'm sorry if the sound has been shitty at times. But yeah, in that episode, the first episode, I talk all about how the epiphany happens to come back to doing the show, how I have to do this, and I guess that's that. Now, it's possible I probably left out a few stories or details about all the steps of the entire playing career I've had that led me to this. I mean, but that definitely covers quite a bit of it. You know, I'm in my 19th year here. And there's no end in sight. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, things change quickly all the time, if you've ever lived life for more than a couple of minutes. So who knows what's in store, but as of now, I still want to keep playing. I still want to beat the fuck out of these people, and I still want to get better. You know, my interest in the game really hasn't faded that much, and it's partly because I never played too much of it. I never wore myself out so much that I just couldn't play anymore. I mean, I got worn out, but not from playing too many hours. I got worn out just from getting worn out. Sometimes you just gotta take some turns in your life and try some other shit for a while. I wasn't really an active player during those 3.5 years, but I still considered myself a professional player. It's like if you ask me for an opinion about a hand, I'm still giving you a professional opinion. And I took this break at my own volition. It's like I won this break. It's just enjoying the success. You got to enjoy the success. But holy fuck, yeah, I left out the moment where I realized I got to get out of the high limit games. I mean, I had sometime in 2015, I had or maybe it was 14. No, I think it was 2015. I had a 17-hour day. I had 4 sessions. Lost all 4. I think it was 10-20 at Bellagio. Went to Aria, played 5-10 Aria, played 10-20 Aria, went back to Bellagio, played 5-10. Just lost. I think I lost 6,400, which was really not even particularly close to what my biggest cash game loss ever was. But that was just a very dejecting day. And I was just pacing up and down the slots in the Bellagio at 7 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, and then it wasn't even my own thought. The thought just hit me as I don't care about this anymore. I don't want this anymore. I was like, wow. And in that moment, I realized it was over. I even thought to myself, it's over, and started crying again. Poker's put me in tears more than a few times. I'm not a cry baby, but I've done my share of crying. And it was fucked up. I mean, it was bittersweet and sad because it's you spend all these years with your nose to the grindstone and you forget that you can actually get to the end of your goal and realize you're happy with the body of work, that you've done enough. You don't need to keep proving more. It's okay to just change your life and change direction. You don't have to do this forever and ever and ever. But look, when you do it for a long time, you just get used to it and you want to keep doing it. You want to feel like, you're still on top, I guess. It's not that I thought I couldn't win anymore. It was just I've taken too many of these tough days. It's just I've had enough of this. I still held on for a while. I mean, I didn't just get out of it that day. I mean, sometimes I felt like I was this athlete who's at the end of his career. He doesn't want to retire. He still thinks he has a little bit left. So now he's thinks he can still be a useful player as a part-time player. Sometimes it felt like that's what I was doing. But, I was taking longer breaks that year anyway, and sometimes I'd play a little smaller. And then I'd been with the World Series of Poker 2015. I told myself, okay, I'm going to make another run at it. I'm going to play some 10-20. I'm going to get back in this. I'm going to do it. My first day back at 10-20 after a while, thinking, I'm not done yet. I lose 10K, and that just put me right back in the fucking hole. Just right back in my little cellar of emotions. Remember, this all started with a 32K loss in October of 2014. I know I'm jumping around here. And then in January, I had my biggest loss ever. I lost 20K at a quarter 50 game at the Aria. So this, of course, was the, highlights of the 64K downswing, my biggest ever. So, all right, I thought I was done, but I wasn't done. Now you have that part of the story. But yeah, you realize that this is not serving you emotionally anymore, so it's time to do something else. And, these last couple of years, I've barely even sniffed 5-10. But, sometimes I've played it and run kind of bad. I mean, I keep getting all in with a really big hand, running it twice. And I'm running good in the sense that when I run it twice, I keep losing the first board and winning the second board. So a good thing I ran it twice. But you're also a 10-1 favorite and you're only winning 1. You're a 4.5-1 favorite and you're only winning 1. You're a 3-1 favorite, you're running it twice and you're only winning 1. I mean, it's not that great, But just the fact that I'm running it twice at all says a lot because the first, when I was playing big consistently, I ran it twice one time. I mean, I ran it once in so many huge pots and I didn't give a fuck. I want max paying for somebody. I don't care who it is. It's okay if it's me. I just want somebody to get it. I wanted to do this the pure, natural way. You guys come in here. People coming in there, they act all big and bad. They got all this gamble, all this and that. And then they get all in and now they want to run it twice. Oh, you got so much fucking balls. Something, if you guys want to take it with your flush draws or take it with your ace king, you're taking the worst of it all the way, okay? We're not running it twice. I know the equity is the same, but we know what we're doing here. We're cutting the variance in half. There's a way better chance that you don't get stacked if you run it twice. We know that. And by its nature, that's not really good for a no-limit game. The idea is to get people hurt. If you guys don't want to get hurt, then don't play this big. So yeah, just the fact that I'm running it twice when I would play 5-10 here and there for little 2-3 hour spurts. I mean, that tells you my psyche has really changed. And, I don't play because I don't really know what I'm worth these days at 5-10. If I don't have that same mojo, if I'm not going to be dead money Dan Arfin when I go into the fucking game, then what am I doing there? I don't want to go there and just be a blemish of myself. I've been trying to make a comeback. It's dead. I can't make a comeback. You can't make that it factor or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, you can't make that revive itself. It's either there or it isn't. And for the longest time it was there, and then one day it was gone, and it's because, all right, I'm satisfied. I've done enough. when I didn't care about like my health that much and doing all that went hand in hand with why playing high stakes worked. That was why it worked. I didn't know that till after I started living a more normal life and realized, hey, I don't need this bloodbath every day. I don't need to think about this every day. Obviously, I'm not playing every day, but when you play that big every day, it's on your mind every day. It affects your life every day. It affects what you do with your money, everything. So look, poker is a good thing to get out of. And I haven't gotten out of it, but I have at least gotten out of the high limit ring, and I did it on my own terms. It only makes sense that I would leave when I'm like, on a downswing. Because if you're on a hot streak, who gets out when they're winning? Who does that? Maybe some people have. But yeah, for now, I'm still just a grinder and a podcaster, and I'm just eager to play. But, I know I don't have to play. I'm not going to make myself play. I want to just enjoy my life here and take my time and just do the things I like. And if something ever changes and I ever get the itch again to go play higher again all the time, then I will. I'm not ruling that out. I mean, who knows when I'm going to change my mind? We've all changed our minds about things that we never thought we would change our minds about. So who's to say I won't change my mind about that or anything else more important than that? I mean, nobody knows the unknown. None of this shit is predictable, even when it seems like it. So, all right. Thanks, guys. I hope I answered your question, Ohio V. And anybody else who wanted to know all of the nitty-gritty, finer details of from day one to learning poker to now. So, all right, I'll cut it here. I'm hoping to have some guests over the next few shows. We'll see how that turns out, but, that'd be a change. So you'll probably, if that happens, you won't hear any more hand analysis from me for a little bit or other stories of other players. Or maybe you will. You never know what's going to come up. But yeah, looking to have some guests soon. So that'll be exciting when they come around. And until then, have a nice time out there, guys. And we'll see you next time.